And you're listening to, and you're watching Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch. Well, hopefully you're listening. Hopefully you're watching Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch, on a platform, on a format known as Twitch. And as I point down, you notice what it says? Royal Columbian Hospital Benefit. Today on Nardwuar on Twitch, on Nardwuar's Video Vault, new interviews, old interviews, music, and talking. Feel free at any time at Nardwuar Serviette in the chat. We're going to transport ourselves shortly to Royal Columbian Hospital live. Yes, we are completely live in New Westminster, British Columbia, Canada, for an interview with Dr. Reynolds. We are going to venture in to the world of Dr. Reynolds. Who is Dr. Reynolds? Well, stay tuned to find out. Well, we'll actually transport ourselves live to see Dr. Reynolds. And you're thinking, oh, benefit, what's this screen? What's this thing on the screen here? Well, it's a benefit for the Royal Columbian Hospital in British Columbia. Who are you?
My name is Dr. Steve Reynolds. I'm an ICU doctor, previous chief of staff here at the Royal Columbian. And a researcher, and I work sort of on the front lines in this stuff.
Dr. Reynolds, welcome to Nardwuar's Video Vault live. We are live now. Right now, we're live.
That's awesome. It's an honor. Looking through your stuff, I love it.
We're live now on Twitch and hoping that people will donate to Royal Columbian, like one of the busiest and biggest hospitals in British Columbia, Canada. Critical care, like critical care. Could you explain just quickly a bit about that? Like, why should people donate to Royal Columbian? Critical care.
Yeah, we're sort of the little hospital that could in some ways. We, we're super duper busy. Some of the sickest people come here in the province. Critical care is on life support, and when you're really, really sick, and sort of like people ask me why I do it. It's sort of like being the goalie, right? You're last man back in many ways in critical care, and you have a big team. The Royal Columbian's neat in that it has a lot of unique things. It's has a lot of busiest, like it's the busiest angiogram suite in the country, busiest cardiac surgery in our province, busiest trauma in our province. So it's super duper busy, and it's a great bunch of people to work with. It's tough work, but it's super duper rewarding. It's a great place to be.
Thanks for joining us, Dr. Reynolds, on Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch. And right off the bat, I wanted to show you something. Does this gentleman right here bring back any memories for you?
Well, that's my dad. Yeah, that's my dad. You showing him with the Tragically hip. He's way cooler than I am. Oh, that's my brother in the corner too. Yeah, for sure.
What exactly is going on there? Like your dad and the Tragically hip.
Oh, so I've fallen so far from the tree. My dad is so much cooler than I am. So they played it as retirement party. You can imagine that. I tell my family I want to go into medicine, and they're like, "Yeah, that's okay. You know, we're super cool. We deal with the music industry." So he's the previous president of Universal Music Canada, and that picture, I think that picture. So they had a fundraising hockey game. And a bunch of the guys from the Tragically hip played, and so they gave him one of the shirts. They called him I think it was Papa Ross. They said thanks to him on one of their albums. So yeah, cool dude.
Right off the bat, Dr. Reynolds, I wanted to give you a gift. I wanted to give you an original Tragically hip poster from 2002.
Nice. That is awesome.
So
that is fantastic.
We're not in person right now, and I guess thankfully we're not in person. Well, I mean, I would love to meet you, but thankfully we're not in the same room. You're not talking to me bedside. Well, I guess you are talking to me computer side, but I will mail this to you. I will get this. Like, I'm not showing this off, but this actually is from 2002, sort of like maybe around the same time as that photo. I'm not sure. If
yeah, about the time. Nardwuar, that's super generous, right? You've been generous just to give us your time and to sort of help us out in that too. That's awesome. Thank you.
And just I was curious about your dad. The Tragically Hip played your dad's retirement party. Your dad was around everybody, wasn't he? Like, it's amazing.
He was. He was. Yeah. 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 I grew up as a kid going to concerts and everything else. It's sort of weird that I'm in science, eh?
Well, what I think is totally amazing is we have a picture of who is that?
That's Billy Idol and my dad. They're the gold or platinum medal thing. Yeah, for sure. There's some good stories that were had for sure.
What exactly is going on there? Like, your dad would present records to these rock stars. Would the rock stars ever leave the records behind? And do you have any records at your house?
There was, well, not at my house because I'm not cool enough to have them, but at my dad's place, there's various different sort of records because he was good friends with some of them. Like Dan Hill was his buddy and things like that. So he has various memorabilia around his place, which is, you look back and it's the Canadian music history. It's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, he would go out. That was his job, right? Like as a music executive business dude, he would go out and, interact with the rock stars, give them their platinum records and chat with them and stuff. And yeah, sometimes I towed around as the, little kid behind him and ate carrots at the table and, drank lots of pop. But it was pretty cool to see.
Did you ever meet Billy Idol?
I think I did. My brother, actually, because he was 4 years older than me. He was a huge fan when Billy Idol really hit it big. So I think there's my brother was pretty good. I don't think I met him actually, but my brother was a big fan, Scott.
Because looking, your dad, Meatloaf, Veruca Salt, No Doubt, even No Doubt. Did you meet any of them?
No, I met Peter Gabriel a few times. That was one I remember meeting a bunch. Obviously, the Tragically Hit him. I met a bunch.
And Peter Gabriel scared you? How did Peter Gabriel scare you?
Yeah. When I was about 8, I went to a pre-show with my dad, and maybe I think I was 8. Hopefully, I was 8. And I went to my dad's sort of schmoozing and everything else, and so I head off onto the bathroom because like I said, I drank lots of pop, and out of the toilet stall comes this crazy bald dude and all this makeup and a cape. And I freak out, right? Because I'm this 8-year-old kid in the bathroom on my own. This weird dude comes out of the stall and I come running back to my dad and I'm like, your friends are crazy. This is crazy. And he sort of calms me down and we go to our seats and the show starts and he goes, was that the guy that scared you? So out comes Peter Gabriel with all this stuff on. Yeah. And so they would laugh at me even into I remember seeing one of his concerts in my 20s. My dad and Peter Gabriel was like, oh yeah, that's the guy. That's the kid that I freaked out. Yeah.
What did your dad say about meeting people? Like all these different pictures, like Meatloaf, Billy Idol, Elton John. Like, what did your dad say about meeting all these people? Were they kind of like, oh, I have to meet Mr. Reynolds? Like, I mean, these people were lucky to get these awards. Like, for instance, do you recognize her? Did you get to meet her?
I think I was way too young. I might have been just a glimmer in my dad's eye at that point. Oh my gosh. And you can see he actually.
Who is that?
I'm trying to see who it is. My phone's too small.
That is Tiffany, the legendary mall queen. Tiffany,
yeah. I remember Tiffany and Alanis Morissette. They were really big when Alanis Morissette was just Alanis before she became Alanis Morissette. Remember meeting her? Yeah, I met Tiffany briefly. Yeah.
I mean, that's every kid's dream, to go from like Tiffany meeting to like COVID investigation and ventilators. I mean, you went from Tiffany to ventilators. I mean, not many people have done that.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But it would have been far cooler to stay in the rock star world, I think, interviewing people like you. But yeah, it's definitely far away from what my dad was doing.
And right now, if people are wondering, yeah, this is live. We're on Twitch. We're talking to Dr. Reynolds from Royal Columbian Hospital doing a benefit for the Royal Columbian. It's important to donate. Like even a small amount. What happens if somebody only donates a small amount of money to Royal Columbian?
Yeah, it's a huge thing. So I think that's a really important thing, right? Through the last 2 years, it's been a challenge for us doing all this stuff, working on the front line. And the foundation has stepped up and really worked on keeping people's morale up, and to know that our community is behind us during this makes a huge difference, right? Like when people went by in the cars and the buses and everything else, that was awesome. And it really made a difference. And donating to the foundation was the same sort of thing. They did stuff that we weren't able to do otherwise. So they, not only to help with like equipment, which is fantastic, but also stuff, I remember they had an ice cream day. And I can tell you, when everybody felt like rock bottom, to go out and get an ice cream cone was amazing. And that's, a little bit of donation. That's really all it takes. It just takes a thank you, right? It takes a, we're behind you guys. And that's a huge deal.
And I appreciate you joining us, Dr. Reynolds. But before actually we get into a couple more things, I wanted to ask you, okay, Tiffany to COVID, that's a long distance. It's a big distance. But where did you make your decision? Was it in the Solomon Islands? You were sitting on the Solomon Islands and you decided?
Nice call. Absolutely. So when I was in my early 20s, I went to the South Pacific and I volunteered for 3 months there. I actually got my first rejection letter from med school there. So I thought I was in because I'd applied to med school and I was like, I'll go away for a few months and I'll come back. And there was no telephones where I was. And so my dad was telling me on the radio about whether I got in or not. And he said, congratulations. And then electrical storm hit. So for the next month and a half, I thought I was going to go to med school. And I actually wrote a letter halfway across the world saying, well, I got to find a place to live and everything else. So he sent me a letter back saying, sorry, buddy, you didn't get in. So I had to go back and keep on trying. I got in eventually. But no, I decided before. I actually had a girlfriend that I was partying a lot in university, having a great time. And she said, university is a privilege, not a right, Reynolds. So so either buck up, work, and do stuff, or get a job. And so that was good advice. I started working, and then I realized that I liked helping people. I like leading teams, and I super duper liked like challenge, like intellectual challenge, trying to figure stuff out. And so it was a good mix.
What about rock and roll? Like that gave you a tolerance of chaos, didn't it? Like rock and roll, chaos, and operating room, ICU, chaos.
Yeah, I love chaos, right? That's my thing. So ICU is sort of a controlled chaos. When you talk about when Olympic level athletes talk about flow, they get into flow, they do stuff. We get into flow as a team when people really need us. And I've worked together with folks for over a decade. We just know what we're doing, right? And it's actually, you want people like us around who enjoy, like the complexity, can deal with the stress, like the challenge, but also trust each other so much that it's really satisfying getting into that, right? And so, but has some chaos. There's something coming at you all the time. ICU work, you do a bit of work, and you never know when a bus is going to blow up or something else. And God forbid, I do not want that to happen, but we're here for you if you need it, right? We're always waiting for it.
And you are Dr. Reynolds, and we're live on Nardwuar's Video Vault doing a benefit for Dr. Reynolds Hospital. You're really in Royal Columbian, aren't you? Can you show us?
You got it.
Can you show us? Are we really in Royal Columbian Hospital? We're not in an office.
Absolutely. Jason's going to show you around a little bit. We're actually in what we call our sim lab. So this lab, one of the things is we always know you got to learn all the time and keep on challenging and getting better. So we have a sim lab that we come together and we learn on. We have the ventilator here. That's a real ventilator we use. You can see we have this is a life pack, which is used for defibrillation and stuff. It simulates stuff. The life. This is what we have upstairs in the ICU. It gives us the vital signs, has IVs here as well. And we actually have other members of our team here, Jeff and Jason, that help keep us on track and do all this stuff together.
Amazing. For ventilators, that's your specialty. What have you learned new about them? Like, is a study over? You were studying ventilators.
Yeah.
What have you learned about ventilators since, I guess, COVID? And what's the history of ventilators? Like, they started as like iron lungs? Yeah,
so the history, Bjorn Ibsen is this dude. He first started ventilating. They did it on animals a little bit to see what they could do, but we used to use, before the polio epidemic, we used these things, iron lungs, right? Which would just suck the chest out. And then Bjorn Ibsen was this dude that worked in Copenhagen, pretty sure it's Copenhagen, as an anesthesiologist. And he thought, well, maybe we can, if we put a tracheostomy in and blew air into the lungs, maybe we could save more people's lives. And it did it. It was awesome for the polio epidemic, for pseudobulbar polio. it really dropped the mortality, and it was the foundation of the ICU. So ICU started because we could use machines and put people deeply asleep and really help them when we couldn't help them otherwise. And that led to trauma and surgery and all these other things that we could do. So that's super cool. And but we've come a long way in many ways about what we can do. We know the ventilator is really good. It can save your life. It's amazing if you get sick, but we also know in COVID and a lot of other things, the lungs can get pretty beaten up, and the machine can do a bunch of damage to the lungs as well. So we're really good at, as a team, at managing people with injured lungs. We do everything from, all the way at the very end, a heart-lung bypass machine. So your lungs don't do any work at all. We just bypass them for a machine, to flipping people over. It's called proning, to use lots of different anti-inflammatories. We're really good at, we actually do process where we put even a pressure gauge, a little manometer into your swallowing tube, into your esophagus, so we can get the pressures exactly right that we want in your lungs so we don't hurt them. So what have we learned? We've learned tons. Like over the last year and a half, we just learned tons and tons about people. And then I do other research too as well. And so we're starting to show that things like the ventilator, even though it's great and can really help you, it causes injuries. So the ventilator actually even gives you a concussion. Basically, it gives you the lungs and brain talk. And so we're working on ways to keep the lungs as open as possible and protecting people as best as we can.
Tummy time. You invented tummy time.
I love the term tummy time, right? Because it's one of those things we're super anxious when people get their oxygen levels dip. And so we found that the way the lungs work, they actually work better when you're on your front, on your tummy. And so what we do is, it sounds basic, but it's super complicated with somebody with all these lines and everything else. We go in there, we turn them over onto their tummy, and we actually see in a fair amount of people that it improves their oxygen levels. It was actually a French study that showed it improves mortality in these folks. And so it really is that tummy time. We sort of joke at the bedside, it's time for tummy time, and everybody rolls their eyes because it's going to be a bunch more work, but it makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference.
I see a mannequin right there. This is a practice room. Can we demonstrate something, you think?
Absolutely. What do you want to do, Jeff? What should we do to him?
Well, hey, Nardwuar, this is SimPerson. So SimPerson's a $125,000 device that's really expensive, but it's really high fidelity. Again, this was a foundation purchase. We couldn't have had this without foundation. So that's where else your money goes. So with this guy right now, this is the real ventilator, the real breathing tube that we would put into a real human. And we can listen to his chest, and we can feel for all of his pulses. This guy even can cry. There's little tear ducts that come out of his eyes. But one thing we can do, just in case we wanted to shock your audience, pun intended, is this is our defibrillator. And if there's anything cool that we can do, it's shock people. And so using this device here, if somebody's in a lethal bad heart rhythm, just like the AEDs, we can use this to shock smart man. And that's what we just did. So we just now hopefully revived him, but he's still on the breathing tube.
Actually,
so
can we, Jeff, would it be okay, and Jason, hold the camera on the mannequin while Jeff pushes the button so we can actually see it happen?
Yeah, he doesn't jump very much. That's the thing. He just gives a little bit. Do you want me to do the button there, Jeff? It's going to make it.
I got it. So he's gonna
Again, this is Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch.
So you can hear the sound as we charge it up. And we make sure nobody's touching. And then we press the shock. We can, and it can, the mannequin, you can actually hear the mannequin. We can talk through a microphone as well to freak people out a bit.
Have you ever, Dr. Reynolds, as a youth, played Operation, the wacky doctor game? Do you remember Operation at all?
I totally remember Operation. I even had a Star Wars Operation. Remember that one? Yeah, I had Operation.
But this room is similar to the game Operation. Like, people can practice in this room.
Yeah, and what it's best for is inducing a certain level of stress. So you want to get when things are challenging and you have to think quickly and there's lots of stress. There's a whole different process you have to go through, and you can read it in a book and say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But when something's happening and you hear the sound of the beep of the oxygen level going down and the person beside you is really stressed out, your brain changes a little bit. And so what this is really good at is working on team dynamics and understanding what you do and how your brain works differently, right? Is during stress, you start to do things. You're like, oh, I can just do one more thing rather than taking a step back, looking to your team, asking for help, talking through, going back to your training. And so what I do all the time is in the ICU, there's some stuff that's very calm and relaxed, and we have to think things through. And then you got to do stuff right now, like right now. You have 15 seconds right now, and your team better know what it's doing. And sometimes, like the vast majority of the time, they go okay and everybody's good. Sometimes there's a hiccup. And this is a great environment to practice those hiccups, to make sure that you can think through 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step, and then you can work as a team. And I know through simulations, I've learned a whole lot about how to manage teams and groups as they get stressed and frustrated to make sure that we're all at our best during it. So it's like operation, but like super duper operation, because now you're not just stressed because you're going to hit the side and go bzzz. Now there's like 3 or 4 people around you all getting worked up over it. And you sort of have to learn how to deal with that dynamic.
And we are live on Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch. If you have any questions for Dr. Reynolds, it's at Nardwuar Serviette in the chat. But actually, we're also raising donations for Royal Columbian Hospital. Please feel free to donate. And actually, Nameless, who we inadvertently mentioned, said, oh, thank you for the shout out. My dad's using his credit card right now to donate. I don't have a credit card myself, so I can't donate my own money. But my dad is donating for me. I hope it helps you guys. I love what you're doing. That was Nameless to you, Dr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Nameless. That's awesome.
I was wondering, Dr. Reynolds, what is voodoo magic? What is voodoo magic?
How do you know that I talk about voodoo magic with my trainees? So it's a good point. So the way I use voodoo magic and the term voodoo magic is in medicine, we know that there is stuff we call evidence-based. So there's things that we know that the data has shown us, which is the correct thing to do. And we must do that stuff. It's absolutely imperative because we know that's how we save lives. I practice differently right now than I did a year ago because of what scientists and what researchers have developed and produced. That's evidence-based medicine. It's my job and my team's job to do it. But ICU care is really complicated. And there's lots of stuff that comes up that we just don't know. That we say, well, okay, so there's this algorithm I know, and I have evidence here, and this algorithm here that has evidence in this. But when I put them all together, I'm not totally sure what we should do. And so what you do is you take a step back, and how I teach the junior doctors is you have to be very conscious about what you know to be true. And then the other bit is, what is my opinion and my best opinion as an expert? Because you have to be really flexible as an expert. If it's your opinion, you don't want to hold that too tightly. You want to get other people's opinions. You want to get other people's stuff in there. So I jokingly call out to my trainees that this is voodoo medicine. This is medicine that we're doing our best to figure out, but it's not evidence-based right now. And we're going to try our best, and we're going to be flexible in it, and we're going to take information in all the time, and we're going to be open to changing our hypotheses as they come through.
Dr. Reynolds, Delta and door handles. What can you say about Delta and door handles?
Like Delta is like the Delta virus and door handles?
Yes, the Delta virus and door handles.
I think the thing to say is wash your hands. That would be the first thing and the foremost. I'd say Delta virus and door handles. To be honest, we don't think that it transfers so much through fomites, through touching door handles and everything else, but we know that a lot of viruses do, so you got to wash your hands, right? That's what I would say when you ask me about that.
What are things we used to worry about with COVID that are maybe less as important now? Is that one of the things?
Yeah, that's okay. So that's what you're getting at. Yeah, we used to think, it was funny how quickly we've evolved in our knowledge around COVID. But it is amazing, actually, when you look back to the Spanish flu about how many parallels there are in terms of the development of knowledge and how societies reacted and everything else. But yeah, that's one thing. We do know that respiratory transmission is really a primary way to do it. And then how it's transmitted. We used to think a lot about droplet versus aerosol, and there's arguments about sort of both in some ways. And we know that it's really important to protect ourselves and protect other people through it. We also know a lot more about how it affects kids. We know some of the weird variants, like how the body reacts occasionally to it, which is really, really different. Because now we have enough experience, we can pick those up, which we didn't pick up early on in the pandemic. It was in the early stage of the pandemic. I can tell you, around the hospital, we were pulling together as best as we could, but we're dealing with a lot of unknowns, and it is pretty validating to know that our community, a scientific community, and hospital communities have come together to learn so much and share so much and so fast. But even, we talked about ventilators before. We actually, at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought there was a whole bunch of different stuff, and we went off in one direction, but we changed pretty rapidly even after a few months. So yeah, like getting back to the handlebars and Delta, or door handles and Delta. Yeah, wash your hands, but get vaccinated. That's the key.
What about toilet flushing? The toilet flushing, like the clouds of droplets that rise. And also, what about the 1930s studies about droplets? Have they been improved on?
Yeah, so good. It's super cool question, Nardwuar. So the toilet flushing really came out of studies from SARS, the initial SARS, right? Because we saw these weird transmissions through hotels and buildings that didn't have anything to do with respiratory droplets. And so there was some question around that with the initial SARS. With COVID, that's not an issue. That's not something that we've been worried about or concerned about. The 1930s comment was really interesting because the initial studies around droplets and aerosols. So just to go back to that, because this is a pretty cool question, is that when you cough out little droplets, right? I don't know if you guys have ever seen that sneezing picture when somebody sneezes. They sneeze out droplets. Now, droplets don't go very far. So the virus is sitting inside those droplets, and it doesn't go very far, and it drops down, and it settles relatively quickly. If you're putting like a breathing tube in, like this guy, okay, you're bypassing all that stuff. You're going right down into the lungs. And so when you're right down into the lungs, if someone coughs at that point, the particle size that they cough out, at least from the studies in the 1930s, were really, really tiny. Okay, tiny. And those can float around the room for a long time, and the virus is inside those. So that's what we talked a lot about the droplets, because droplet, you only have to be about sort of this far away versus aerosol, which cooks up the whole room. So something like tuberculosis is spread by an aerosol mechanism. And it aerosolizes really easily. So, but one of the things is that those studies were done in the 1930s, and we never really changed a lot of our knowledge from that. There was a cool study in the New England, one of the big journals, which was somebody did, I think it was a mom and their son did with their cell phones to look at the actual distribution of droplets. And they showed that probably our understanding from the 1930s wasn't true. And that it spread a bit farther than that droplet type of pattern. That all being said, before we all went running for the hills and freaking out, there's a lot of stuff that gets more complicated in it, because it also has to do with, you do have a natural immunity, right? Like there's a little bit of virus that you can be exposed to and you can fight off. I'm not saying anybody should do that, but you have to have a certain amount of inoculum of the virus to get it. So it probably turns out that even though the 1930s data probably is not true, it probably practically is pretty true, because it has to do with how we have resistance, how basically your nose filters out viruses and all that type of stuff.
Thank you again, Dr. Reynolds, for your time in joining me on Nardwuar's Video Vault on Twitch. If anybody has any questions for Dr. Reynolds, it's at Nardwuar Serviette in the chat. And also, feel free, well, it won't be free, but it's free to donate, at least, to Royal Columbian Hospital. We had a question here in the chat from CEO of Dysfunction. And CEO of Dysfunction asks, does my wife need to Lysol all our groceries?
Good question. Generally, no. So I know we were saying we should do that, and we were really cautious before. And I know that makes some people feel more comfortable. Generally, the virus tends not to be spread by fomites, by that transition. So touched surfaces like that. That all being said, I know that I've washed my hands and alcohol my hands way more. And I know early on the virus, that was one of the things that I was encouraging, I know my family, my parents, to do strongly. But it's really, your exposure is coughing, sneezing, people around you. That's the big thing. That being said, occasionally viruses are spread through mucous membranes. So you touch, or you sneeze in your hand, and you rub on something. Those tend to die relatively quickly. But particularly stuff that's already wrapped, or that you're peeling or you're washing, that you don't have to do that type of stuff.
Dr. Reynolds, I was curious, what about yourself? Do you watch any doctors on YouTube? Who are your favorite doctors? Where do you turn for information? Like, do you watch any doctors on YouTube, etc.?
So what I do, so there's two things. My favorite doctor is Dr. Green from ER, if you remember that. I remember one time in the elevator when I was a trainee, when I actually had hair, one guy turned to me in the elevator, looked at me and said, "Dude, you look like Dr. Green." So I was a little hurt by that, but I remember that. That might be some of your viewers may not recognize that guy. But in terms of what I do for my stuff is a lot of the times it's through we disseminate information through articles, so scientific articles, and we talk to each other through those. I have a bunch of buddies, sort of research buddies around the world that I talk to. So there's guys in France that I do a bunch of work with. That we have the same sort of interest around diaphragms and things like that. So that's how I get my stuff is through readings. And occasionally we go to conferences, but we really aren't doing that now. It's more sort of virtual Zoom type of conferences. And the challenge is stuff's changing so fast. So you have to gather and consume information where you can. Podcasts are usually really good because if I'm driving into the hospital, I can listen to a podcast on the way in and out. And so usually there's some really good podcasts on new cutting edge stuff, and we put it out. And then one of my buddies puts out an educational podcast that I can just round out my knowledge if I'm missing anything, or if I want to go back to
what remember are their names. I was just curious, what should people look for? What are their names, if you could disclose? Yeah. What would you listen to?
Adam Thomas is a guy. He's a intensivist and emerge doc in Victoria, I think he is right now, and he's done some amazing stuff, amazing podcast. I forget the name of the podcast itself because I just have subscribed to it, but I'm sure if you Google Adam Thomas, that's a guy that has, he's on the ball, he knows his stuff, and I usually trust what he's saying in terms of the baseline things.
What about for N95s, Dr. Reynolds? Do you have to use them and then throw them out? Can you throw them in the wash? How long do N95s last? Like, if somebody uses them on an airplane, do they have to check them after the flight?
Yeah, so good question. So N95, so what it refers to is the size of the particle that it filters out, okay? In the hospital, I tend to wear this, just a surgical mask, and that provides adequate protection, okay? And most of the time, I'm actually protecting against other people with my mask, from protecting them from me, right? N95s, when I use N95s, it's in a room in which there's been that aerosolization. So there's a lot of virus that's potentially floating around, or I'm going to stir up the virus. So when I put somebody on life support on this breathing machine here, okay, I have to stick this in their throat. It's a pretty nasty process, right? So I got to stick this in their throat. And so when I do that, I'm stirring up the virus like something awful. It's all over the place. So I got all my stuff on. At that point, I wear an N95. So an N95 itself also needs to be properly fitted. And I can tell you that there's some, for me at least, there's some N95s that don't fit properly. And it's a tight seal, okay? So that's the thing about an N95, for it to really work. Nothing else can get in, and it just has to be that N95. You have to put it on properly, and you also have to take it off properly, right? You want to take it off through touching the back straps and dropping it, not touching the front where there can be a concentration of virus. So I only use it in certain environments. Got to make sure it's fitted properly. And really, it's a one-time use jobby, right? We're not using it again. I sometimes use, it sounds crazy, but early on in the virus, one of my buddies who works in construction gave me his mask that he used for paint stuff, which had an N95 filter on it. So I used that because I knew it fit me well. It's a bit heavy, but it was one of those ones that I had around. So Jason's just handing me one. So we use these in the hospital. So because they're reusable, we were running out for a while. We were really scared that we were going to run out of N95s. We didn't, happily. We were able to maintain a good supply chain, and through tons and tons and tons of work of people, we were able to do that. But yeah, so sometimes we wear these ones as well. And then so surgical masks are really protecting you to help everybody else. I remember a while ago I saw a cartoon of somebody wearing pants, right, and peeing their pants. And so that's sort of the idea, is that you're controlling the spread of your virus by keeping the mask on. and you're helping to protect everybody else around you, and so that's a good idea. So N95s, I see people wearing them and spending a lot of money on them. Unless they're fitted really well, unless you're going into an environment that really, really requires them, don't spend your money on them. Just wear the regular surgical masks. Practice good hand hygiene. Get vaccinated. That's the way to protect yourself.
Dr. Reynolds, if you could ask COVID a question, what would you ask COVID?
Oh, when are you going to stop? When are you going to stop? I guess that's the question. And then how many more variants that we're going to have to deal with as we go through. That's the thing I think we're all sort of struggling with right now, trying to keep our energy up and keep focused and positive. But it's been a long go. It's been a long go, and we want to know when. I think it would be great to know when it's going to be done, so we can plan accordingly.
And who else is in the room right now with you, Dr. Reynolds? Who else is in the room right now?
We got Jason right over here. Jason's one of our respiratory therapists. Hi, Nardwuar. So these guys,
Jason.
These are the guys that help us with the ventilators, help us with managing that stuff. They really manage those machines and understand them like deeply, and they're all over the hospital. They help with extra oxygen, and they serve as a core part of the team.
And Jason, I have actually a gift for you, because does this fellow mean anything to you? I have a 45, an original 45 of this fellow.
Is that Jackie Chan?
Jackie Chan. That's a gift for you.
Really?
Because you're into karate, aren't you? Westwood
How
karate.
did you know that? How did you possibly know that?
Well, you are Jason. We have to know. This is a gift for you.
Well, thank you. That's fantastic. I love Jackie Chan.
I will give this to Jason, or I will mail it to you. So this is Jack. Could you this actually relates to a question? How do you unwind? How do doctors unwind after doing everything during the day? Like, you do some karate. How does everybody unwind?
We were just talking about this. I do karate 2 to 3 times a week, and if I couldn't beat up a heavy bag at least 2 to 3 times a week, I think I would go absolutely insane.
What exactly in the room can you point out to the viewers of Nardwuar on Twitch? Again, what are we doing right here? A benefit for Royal Columbian Hospital. Can you point anything out specifically, some of the machines that you see every day?
So the ventilator here, this is the G5 ventilator. It's one of our high-end critical care ventilators. It's what keeps a lot of the patients in the ICU going.
And what are some other stuff in the room that people might see? Like to your left, there is some stuff.
Magna resuscitator. If this thing stops working, the power goes off, all the gas stops working. We still have this and our hands to keep you going. So worst case scenario, the machine stops working, we can keep you going with our hands.
And the eyelids are moving.
Yeah, you don't really want to have your eyelids open and be awake if I'm doing this to you. It's not the most comfortable thing. And then here, it's a suction catheter. It's another of those uncomfortable things that we do in the ICU. It's a breathing tube. If that plugs off, bad things happen. Your lungs are great at producing all kinds of stuff, so especially if you've got a lung infection. So we take this long hose here and do a magic trick. It goes all the way down into your lungs. And then back it comes. Now, the human body has spent thousands of years developing these fantastic reflexes to keep things going down into our lungs. So you fight really hard to get that back out there. You've got cough reflexes. So, you know, when you swallow some water and it goes down the wrong way and you start to cough? That's what that feels like every single time. That is the suction catheter. That's why you don't really want to see a respiratory therapist. We're some of those guys. We're kind of like Batman. Signal goes up. We come, show up, do our stuff with our stuff, and then leave without anybody knowing you were there or seeing us.
Who else is in the room right now, Jason? Who else is in the room? Can you point out the other people in the room?
We got Jeff Kane.
Hey, Nardwuar, I'm Jeff.
Hello, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm so good today. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. I'm a big fan, so I really appreciate this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jeff, because I understand through Jason told me your wife actually helped my mom when my mom was in a hospital.
I always talk about, every time I see one of your new interviews, I always tell my wife how excited I am, and I make her watch it. And she always recounts the times of sharing elevators with you and seeing you on the unit and knowing that, your mom was there. And she remembers you as a very calm and kind person. And so, yeah, those are some of the stories. That was my close connection to you. And now this is my next connection to you. I'm getting closer. I hope to see you in person one day, Nardwuar.
Well, I'm so grateful for you and your wife helping my mom. Like, I hung out in the ICU. Basically, I think it was like almost like a year. My mom was in the ICU like a long time. I had like fun meeting everybody. Was so friendly there. It's not really supposed to have fun in ICU, but I enjoyed going there because everybody was so friendly and so accommodating. So thank you for helping my mom. And I realized also I was very lucky to shout out to everybody watching not in Canada to live in Canada, because that wouldn't happen in another country. That would be a lot of money, wouldn't it? Like have your mom in the ICU for a year.
I wouldn't even be able to calculate it. It just makes me grateful that we live here and that it's something that we don't have to think about, especially now with so many people getting sick. So yeah, I'm grateful that in Canada, we don't directly see a bill and we can get care and worry about our loved ones and worry about ourselves without having to worry about paying a bill. We're lucky.
And Jeff, I have a gift for you. It's actually a DVD I made up of my mom. It includes
no way.
It includes some stuff from the hospital because my mom blogged from the hospital. Yeah. So I thought you could give this to your wife possibly, and you can watch it too. It's some blogs and my mom's life story on DVD format for you to check out. And this was a return, like in other words, this was like in return for you looking after my mom for all these years. So this is a gift for you, Jeff.
Thanks, Nardwuar. I'll pass that on. And what a nice way to commemorate your mom. Nicely done, man.
And actually, I was curious, just for you, anything you want to point out in the room there? Anything you want to point out that we haven't covered in the room?
Yeah, so some of the equipment, I really like using this simulation mannequin. Just like Dr. Reynolds said, it gives us an opportunity to practice real scenarios with people in a really low risk environment. So you can crash and burn and you can, get all your practice out without it really causing any risk to patients. The main piece of equipment that I work with is over here. Like I showed you earlier, this device here, this is a really important tool when it actually comes to code blues or if there's a cardiac event for people. Using these devices, we can help restart hearts. We can make slow rhythms faster, fast rhythms slower. So in my teaching with resuscitation and my training with our staff here in this hospital, this piece of equipment is probably my, this is the main thing on my tool belt. And other equipment that we have up here is a whiteboard for communication and saying hi to Nardwuar, love RCH. And this is where we put up all our other notices and instructions and our tools, because not only do we train with equipment and hands-on stuff, but we also work really hard to make sure that we learn how to communicate and be team leaders and team followers. Those are really important pieces of what we do here as well.
Well, that's quite amazing that you put my name on a whiteboard. Like, I've been to Lions Gate Hospital, to visit my mom, etc. And I've seen like the Jim Pattison Pavilion. And that kind of like, it's out of my reach. But I was thinking, I got my name on the whiteboard, but people watching right now can donate. They may not get their name on a board, but what can people get when they donate? What sort of satisfaction will they get? Even a small amount is important. Like, that's what we're doing this right now. A benefit for Royal Columbian Hospital on Twitch, on Nardwuar. Like, what can you say about donating? Why should people donate?
Everything adds up, Nardwuar. This entire room, all of this has been purchased through the foundation. The BC government, we're spending money on real people, and we don't have a lot of money for fake people. So thankfully, because of donors to the foundation, we've been able to purchase some of this equipment that runs on the expensive side that's hard for governments to justify. So what people get outside of sometimes when we fundraise for specific pieces of equipment, it's the knowledge that their money is going to systems, that's going to a foundation that is able to help us provide training, to provide equipment, to provide really specialized equipment that otherwise we couldn't afford, not only for training, but for real life and in very specific situations. Some people choose to donate specifically to NICUs, neonatal intensive care. Other people choose to give donations that are a little more general, that allow the foundation to make decisions based on applications by myself to say, I need this piece of equipment. And it's through generous donations, and every little donation matters. I've asked for as little as $300, and I've asked for as much as $125,000, and the foundation has always come through. So make no mistake, every dollar that is donated to us counts. It adds up, and it makes our life so much better when we can have the equipment, the training to do what we need to do in this hospital at Royal Columbian. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for donating.
This is Nardwuar's Video Vault live on Twitch, doing a benefit for Royal Columbian Hospital. And is Dr. Reynolds still around? Is Dr. Reynolds still around?
I'm here. I'm here, Nardwuar.
Dr. Reynolds, does this bring back any memories right here?
Oh my gosh, you've like the archive of my dad's old pictures. I'm trying to go back.
That's your dad. Now, what band possibly could this be? Leather pants. Look at the leather pants.
Those are impressive leather pants. Yeah, my dad had the cool stash there. That's pretty good.
Well, this band, and I have a gift for you and your dad, was Spandau Ballet. Do you remember
yeah,
Spandau
that sounds
Ballet?
true, right? True.
Yes, true.
So cranked it
this
out.
is on vinyl. I have an actual vinyl copy of this to give to you, and I will mail it or give it to Jason, but it won't be hidden in a Nard layer. But we have the Spandau Ballet True. One of the people that dropped by your house, but I understand also Bono dropped by your house too, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, the story about that I always feel bad about is my high school girlfriend. At one point, you know, I was getting all serious. I really liked her. And so I wanted to give her a friendship ring. And so my dad pulls out this friendship ring and I give it to my girlfriend, who subsequently lost it. And it was the friendship ring that Bono gave to my dad. Talk about a loser thing that your teenage son to do. But anyway, it was, he was in there with met Bono and the folks at U2 for sure.
Did you get to go to his gigs? Where did he play?
Oh yeah. I remember going to Bono's. I bet we were just those giant arena rock stuff, right? Like so. But I actually, the one funny story about stuff is I had a terrible sense of what music was going to do well. So my dad would play me like the early tape of stuff, and I'm like, no, that's not going to do well. There's just no way. So I remember he played this one band for me, and I said, they have the dumbest name ever. Like, well, who's going to listen to Guns N' Roses? And this music sucks. It's not going to do very well. Clearly, I was wrong. He played me Alanis Morissette and Jagged Little Pill, and I was like, man, that's really angry. I don't think anybody's going to like this music. And of course, I was entirely wrong. So I was like the opposite. Whatever I said when I listened to as a teenager, clearly I didn't have my thumb on the pulse of stuff.
Do you remember Felix the Cat Potvin at all, Dr. Reynolds?
I do. Yeah. The goalie for the Leafs.
The goalie for the Leafs. You kind of share something with Felix the Cat, don't you?
No, I don't. I was a goalie in hockey. I was more like a sieve than a real goalie. I like to say that I made the other players feel good about themselves most of the time. That was my special hockey skill.
Well, there is a rumor out there that Felix the Cat Potvin was the subject to Alanis Morissette's
Jagged Little Pill.
You ought to know. Didn't you have some connection that your friends thought you were buddies with Alanis?
So there you go. So I worked at a camp for inner city kids growing up, Moorlands Camp, fantastic camp. Really did a lot of good things for inner city kids in Toronto. And at one point I was the assistant director. So I was interviewing people for jobs. And one of the guys was from my old high school. I graduated 3 or 4 years before. I interviewed him, super nice guy. He gets the job. And at the end of the interview, he's like, hey, are you like, you're like Steve Reynolds, like the Steve Reynolds. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Why what do you mean? He goes like, you're the guy that was with Alanis Morissette, right? And so clearly I was not. I met her once or twice, but there was, for whatever reason, a rumor developed at my school after I left that I was with her. So it was definitely wrong. And she's a fantastic person, but it was quite funny that years later, my buddy, the guys at the schools had talked about me, even though I never really was true. So I definitely had an odd rumor about it.
And we're speaking here live, winding up with Dr. Reynolds, live from Royal Columbian Hospital. And I'm doing a benefit, Nardwuar to Human Serviette, on Twitch. And you can still donate after we finish the Twitch. And I was curious, we're live from Royal Columbian Hospital. What is it like when you are a patient there nowadays? Like, for instance, copper fixtures. Are there a lot of copper fixtures, ultraviolet boxes? And then the new technology, has anything changed in the actual hospital?
Yeah, we have all these cool things, right? So we're undergoing a new build. We're planning to undergo a new build in the next few years. 1.3 billion, I think it is, right?
1.9.
Oh, there you go. So the challenge is our hospital was built a long time ago. So it was not in the 19th century, but the most recent version was built a long time ago. So we're still doing stuff in like old rickety elevators and stuff like that, which would be great to have, like the Kia-sized elevators. But we have brought in new technology, what we can, and fixed it in. We have like robots that go in. We have this one UV sort of robot-y thing that goes in and shines crazy light around the room to clean everything, which is great. And I can tell you, I've been a patient. I broke my wrist mountain biking, and I chose to come out to the Columbian because it was, I think it just provides great care. It's a little weird seeing all my colleagues and me being the patient. A few came and sort of laughed at me and said I was a bit of a loser for breaking my wrist mountain biking, but it was great. It was great care, and it was where I chose to go for sure.
The Retilac Lodge.
Yeah, Retilac, absolutely. So a bunch of us. That was actually tons of fun. A bunch of us. You'd asked how you decompress after doing some of the work, and a few of us went to Retilac to go cat skiing, which was just amazing. Like, I'd never done it before, so I did that for 2 years with a bunch of the guys, and it was really good because different parts of the hospital, sometimes you don't work with the teams as much, and spending some time together like that really helped to smooth things over, because you developed trust and communication and ability to talk to somebody when you're having a conflict at 2 a.m. trying to figure things out. If you have a bit of history together, it makes things go well.
Dr. Reynolds, I was curious, and we're speaking here to Dr. Reynolds, and winding up here, if anybody has any questions for Dr. Reynolds, it's at Nardwuar Serviette in the chat, and I can relay them. But right now, Dr. Reynolds, we're speaking to you, and we're looking at you, and you have that nice outfit. What do you think about the scrubs? A lot of times when people wear scrubs, it has a big neckline. Why is there a big neckline when the COVID could land on your, are the necklines changing since COVID has been around?
Yeah, it's a good question, because I agree with you. That neckline, like, I actually wear a t-shirt under it. Otherwise, all my furry hair would show everybody. I think it's a little bit much, but yeah, it's the I always wear the scrubs. I'm wearing like regular collared stuff because I'm not seeing patients today. But yeah, I do wear scrubs all the time when I do it. I don't know why they have such a low neckline. I agree that, my wife's a physician too, and I know when she wears scrubs, she wears a shirt underneath. And then problem is that early on in the pandemic, we didn't know really well how stuff was spread. So I remember I would take that shirt and, crumple it into a ball and like sneak it into the laundry and make sure I washed it and have a shower before I left the hospital and all that crazy stuff. But yeah, it seems like it's a weird hospital fashion sense, I guess.
And we have a question for you, Dr. Reynolds. Ask Dr. Reynolds if hospital cafeteria food has improved over the years.
Oh, that's a loaded question, but I guess I just have to say probably the cafeteria food that we get is I choose to go outside, maybe, is what I would say. I tend to go across the street, but that's actually interesting. Point is that sometimes it's so busy for me, I don't get to eat. So I will drink one of those Boost food replacements, and it usually grosses the nurses out a lot, because they sometimes see patients throw that back up. So they can't, I take a certain amount of joy in grossing out my nursing colleagues.
Those are kind of like the boosts you pour into those drips that go into patients? The brown stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't admit that I'm going to get in trouble for stealing from the hospital, but I figured, if I'm doing a long shift, I need to make sure I don't get hangry. So the vanilla ones and ice are pretty good.
When you go outside, where do you check out? Like the Taco Factory, Greens and Beans? Where do you check out if somebody's in New West in BC? Where should they check out?
You clearly know around here. I love Lenora or Leona at Greens and Beans and the team down there because they're awesome. They know everybody when you walk in, say their name. Across the street they have great coffee sort of as you come back up to at the Take 5. So I really like that. The taco place is awesome. So I like taco place, and then up a little bit farther there's shawarma. I like the shawarma right by the 7-Eleven. That's what if I can sneak out of the hospital and walk a little bit, clears my head and I get some food. So that's always good.
And you have a great team that works with you. Like in the room right now, how many people are in the room right now?
Right now there's 4 of us.
And behind the camera is?
There you go.
Jason's
right behind the camera there.
Jason, could you do a face reveal?
Well, I've got to keep the mask on, but you can look at me like this. Most people just prefer that I keep the mask on.
And you used to be a journalist, didn't you?
I did. I used to work in radio many years ago.
And also, you've seen it Tragically Hip too.
I have. I was at one of their last shows here in Vancouver. Yeah, fantastic show.
And I have a gift for you, a book about the Tragically Hip.
Wow.
Written by Steve Newton from the Georgia Strait in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. You know the Georgia Strait?
Yes, of course. That's very nice of you, Nardwuar. Thank you.
And this is an amazing history of the Tragically Hip because it charts them from 89, like really early. And you can see some of Steve's interviews right there.
That's awesome.
Look, Gord Downey in 89. So this is an amazing book filled with neat tidbits. Like I love the scan of the cassette, the Tragically Hip, and that's for you. And it's by again Steve Newton from the Georgia Strait magazine, and you can see a signed copy to Steve. A local connection, and that's a gift for you for holding the camera all this time because you've held the camera a lot, haven't you?
Well, my arm's getting numb, but you know what? It's all worth it. It's been a pleasure to have you talk with us. So anytime.
And could you go quickly, just one last time, to Dr. Reynolds, if that's possible?
Absolutely.
Hey, Nardwuar.
Dr. Reynolds, thank you again for your time. At the beginning of COVID-19, you described as kind of like the Super Bowl for healthcare workers, but now it's like exhausting and crushing. Yeah. It's changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
It's good comment, right? Like the reason why I know my team and I go into medicine, like I feel comfortable, and that's why I chose to work here, is because we really care. Like this is what we want to do. Jason and the foundation have been really good, and you're really kind in raising our profile. But a lot of the time, we just want to get our work done, right? We just want to do this stuff and get there, and this is our job. And so, early on in the pandemic, even though it was scary and we knew we were at risk before we were able to get vaccinated, this is what we signed up for, right? Like this is our stuff, and we pulled together as a community, and we worked really hard. And it was a little bit like we called it I jokingly called it the Super Bowl for the infection control folks, right? Because it's how you control things, and they were super duper important. And Bonnie Henry has done an amazing job, and she really is. Who would have thought that somebody in her position would have so much brand recognition? But it's like the Super Bowl. She's the quarterback, right? But it's slowly gotten to the point where it's tiring now, right? Like there's only so much we can do in terms of people recognizing us and supporting us. But it's just the time again when you're going back to work or you're doing overtime. Like just talking to Jason. Jason's been, he's one of our respiratory therapist leads, and he normally leads stuff and educates people and makes sure everybody's on track. He's at the bedside. He's doing extra shifts. That's the same type of stuff with the docs. We're there. We're working hard. So it's just tiring, and that's why we're trying to do our best to get through this as a community and support each other. And we know things like vaccination works, and so that's the thing is we're.
Please.
I go by the name of Pretty Flacco. Right here we got Addy,
ASAP, and Mr. Coke and White bitches. Yeah.
We got right here we got the young beat maker,
ASAP top beats, man.
Right here we got the Fergenstein.
ASAP Ferg, you already know.
Right here we got the Good Goon.
ASAP 12, what up?
Right here we got the White Gold Slugger.
ASAP Lou.
Right here we got the DJ.
ASAP J Scott.
Right here we got the Nasty Baby Crack in the Sock.
Already.
Nigga, say your name, motherfucker. What the fuck?
New York Nasty Baby Crack in the Sock 90s nigga.
Right here we got the goofiest motherfucker I know. What do you say? His name is Dirty Flacco or some shit.
Dirty Flacco, brother. Holla at your brother.
And he balances water on his head. He could fuck bitches while he got the water on his head. Like, it'll be balanced on his head while he hitting it from the back, fucking bitches, and it won't fall. Right here we got the Brose right here. You know, tell him your name, Brody.
Yo, what it do? I'm ASAP AV.
The Shadow. The Shadow King.
And we are missing ASAP
Yams.
I fucked your dame and she bought me a
motherfucking chain.
A chain. And I was thinking, Mr. Ferg, chains, you make the chains.
Oh,
did he know that? That was so long ago.
Yeah, I used to make chains. I used to make jewelry.
And I guess I was curious, ASAP, what is the importance of the Black Ink Gallery?
Wow. How the fuck do you know about the Black Ink Gallery? Okay, Black Ink Gallery is a tattoo shop in Harlem where we all used to just hang out at 113th. And, you know, that was just like one of the clubhouses. We got a bunch of them, several of them.
And Ferg, your dad used to do stuff for Bad Boy?
He designed the Bad Boy logo for Puff.
Yeah, what did he do? What else did he do? Are you still in contact with him at all? That's amazing.
My father actually passed away, but he did the Uptown Cats logo for Andre Harrell also.
And he did big picnics too that everybody loves?
Wow. Yes, he did. Same gang picnics.
It's amazing having Ferg in the crew.
You're a fucking psychic genius.
Rocky, you were on Angie Martinez's show.
Yes, sir.
And I thought, I should give you some Angie Martinez. Do you have any of her music at all? This is some Angie Martinez for you.
I love Spanish.
A couple of them, including one with Jay-Z as well.
Oh, that's my shit right
Wait, how you say
I love it Spanish?
Mira more.
How you say I love it dog?
Can I hit it raw? You know what I'm saying? Regular shit, you know?
Are you down with Angie Martinez's music?
Yo, I'm gonna be honest, I like Is This His Ladies Night and all that other shit. Angie is, man, she's the homie and she's beautiful.
Well, I love the way you support the ladies. You guys love the ladies, don't you?
Fuck yeah.
Who are some of your favorite rappers, female persuasion? You love the Kim, right? You love the Angie Martinez.
Who else do I like? Let me see. I think Lady Rage was dope. You know what I'm saying? Who else do I like? Foxy was cool.
Hold on, I'm trying to have super rap babies with Erykah Badu.
How are you gonna make that possible? That might actually happen.
I hope so. I hope so for his sake.
What about the video? Who's in the video for What's Up? Desiree. Who's Desiree? Who's the woman in the background?
How do you know Desiree? All right. Desiree is just a cool chick that, you know, we know, and I got her to do the shower scene, and she got a fat ass, you know what I'm saying?
I'd like to know more about her. How do you know about her?
I know about it through Rock, so you got
Man, hey man, I know about her through Addie.
Man, I don't even know that bitch at all, so I'm out of it, my nigga. I don't know her, my nigga. Honestly.
She was already in the shower when we came. She was in the shower already.
Nigga said she was already in the shower when we came.
Camera crew.
Now, ASAP Ty Beats.
What's poppin'?
You're the genius behind
Purple Swag and Pesos.
Peso. And I thought I would give you something and give Rocky something in the mob. What can you tell the people about the SOS band?
Wow. That's the Peso sample.
Yeah.
Where did you find that?
In my pop's library, you know what I'm saying?
That's a great library.
Yes, it is.
How big is the library? Where did he get into that? What do we have happening? Please.
Out of here, nigga. Look at Yams.
Can you please introduce him if you could? ASAP Rocky.
ASAP Yams, meet Nardwuar.
All right, how you doing?
Hey, amazing. Welcome to Austin, Texas.